Um, let's see. Up there we go. How about now?
I think it looks good. Yep, looks good. All right.
But we're going to be looking for just an audio recording, or do you want me actually visible?
Is visible? Is it okay if I record the video as well, or is
I guess I wasn't. Yeah, wow, I wasn't really set up for it. I mean, what do you usually do?
we usually record video. No one really sees the video, so but I store it on YouTube for archival, and then most people hear it on audio. So
Okay, well, just if so long as you don't mind the possibility that it might scrape some of our bandwidth away,
okay,
sending pictures back and forth. We'll see.
okay. Sounds good. I'm on Google Fiber, so I'm good on my
Yeah,
end.
well, I'm on what is it now? Oh, well, I'm FiOS. But what did Frontier just take over?
I'm not sure.
Frontier just took over something, and everybody's complaining. I think our service has changed hands a couple of times, so it may not be the best.
Okay. Oh, can I make one recommendation?
Yeah,
Is if you could use headphones or earbuds or something like that.
hold on.
Okay, no problem. Okay. Okay.
And about how long are we looking at? Do you think?
Probably an hour, maybe
Okay,
40 minutes, an hour.
all right, let's give it a try.
It depends on if we get really going. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, how do I sound?
It sounded great. Yeah, I heard a little bit of my echo coming through.
Oh, okay.
So this way we don't have the computer fight, to suppress that audio. So
All right.
cool, cool. Well, thank
Sounds
you.
good.
Well, thank you for making time to
My pleasure.
be part of this. So yeah. Um, Last time I saw you, you were in Austin doing the book tour
Oh,
for
yeah,
for the
yeah.
book for the sculptor. How's that going? You're still? I still feel like this is like you're still part of the book tour. So it's
Well, it's now been, what is it, about a month and 3 or 4 months since it came out. Excuse me, a
a
year
year
and
and
three or 4 months
yeah.
since it came out. So I've certainly quieted down. I'm getting back to work on the next book. But yeah, the book is still out there. It's already in 12 languages,
Wow.
and yeah, it's still moving about for a big fat hardback. We're still moving copies, so it's kind of nice. And we'll see what happens with the movie, which is still kind of a going concern as a possibility. But
Yeah.
you know how Hollywood is. God only knows if it'll actually ever get made. But
Yeah.
but that process has indeed begun, just in
Oh,
case.
nice.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, that's awesome because I also know because we've talked before. You are a movie fan, and you
Yeah.
watch a lot of movies, which is great. And because because you is in the okay 80s, you created Zot, right?
Yeah. That's
Right,
right.
Zot, and then which is a great story. I recommend people
I do.
buying it. The back issues, and so there was talk about you said like, hey, why don't you just I just like me like in this decade like, hey, why don't you make a movie as Zot? And you're like, yeah, you're like,
Actually, yeah, I've said no to a few people over the
yeah,
years. There
yeah,
have been like 4 or 5 sort of entreaties to make a Zot movie, and
yeah,
each time, sometimes I'll get pretty close, sometimes I'll just wave them away. But
mm,
for one reason or another, it never looked like the right
right,
opportunity.
right. And
Um,
that's one of the things like I learned about you was just like you like if it doesn't feel right or if it's not going to be right, you just like nah, I'd rather not do it
yeah,
if that feel right.
yeah,
So,
kind of
so
picky that way, I guess.
yeah, that's cool. Since we're on top of like, movies, let's give you any movies that you liked recently. I just want to just put that out there.
Actually, the movie I can't get out of my head, I didn't necessarily like, and it was The Lobster.
The Lobster. Oh, I love the Lobster. I love the Lobster. Yeah.
It was really grim though. I went with Ivy and our friend Ricky, and
Mm-hmm.
we were just joking about it all the way home. How it was wasn't always user friendly.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the most important measures for a movie is whether or not I can't stop thinking about it for days or weeks or months afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
And so far, it's doing pretty well,
Yeah.
because I have a lot of trouble getting some of those images out of my mind. But um, just this is a spoiler, so like turn it down, anyone who's listening. But we should have consulted "Does the dog die?" That
Yeah.
there, that very useful site,
Yeah. Oh
because
yeah.
that's usually a deal breaker
Oh yeah.
with my wife.
Oh geez. Yeah. Oh man. That's dang it. Oh man.
But it has some.
You're bringing back some memories now. So I thought I put that one aside. But yeah,
Yeah, it's probably wise.
yeah, yeah. I saw that. That was we went to a film festival here in Austin for the first time. It's called Fantastic Fest,
Uh huh.
and it's a genre film festival, and that was the keystone, I guess, if you will, like of the festival. And so I had never heard of it, and it was like September last year, and I was just like, but the person who runs or like who helps run the festival is Tim League, and he does the Alamo Draft House
Mm-hmm.
movie theaters. So if you've heard of the don't talk in our theater that from the PSA lady who complains about being
Okay.
thrown out. That's his movie theater.
That's the one.
Yeah, that's the one.
Awesome.
So he found the lobster, and he said like I have to bring this and share because that's his like that lobster is for him is like the movie, and so I'm like okay, I'll go watch Lobster. I'm like I was just I love the movie so much, and I felt like I hoped they would bring it to the mainstream audiences in America, but I felt like I don't know if this will find a place in America
Well,
mainstream.
it made it. It made it to our local art house. We're out in the burbs, so that was actually something of an accomplishment.
Yeah,
But yeah, I think the thing it falls into that very narrow category of like people like Lars von Trier and things like Nymphomaniac, was really kind of director versus audience, and it's just like I am not here to please you,
right,
right? You just sit in that seat, and I'm just gonna smack you around,
right,
and then like light up a cigarillo and walk away after I'm done. And it had that feel, and I felt like it may have unseated the cook, the thief, his wife, and her lover for like the quintessential, just kind of just slap you in the face art film kind of a thing,
right.
but but man, I can't stop thinking about it. You
Yeah,
gotta give props to anything that you can't stop thinking about.
yeah. I think that just this movie is like it does not like if you don't want to follow along, it's not going to help you out in any way. You're like you have
Yeah,
to buy the premise. If you don't buy it, then you might as well just walk out.
yeah.
Just like
The relationship between you and the movie, it's kind of codependent. It's
yeah,
it's like a very unhealthy relationship.
which is about yeah. So yeah,
Why are you still living with that movie? Why have you not divorced that movie? Is
oh,
that movie treating you well? No, and you're still sitting here.
oh man,
It's kind of great though.
yeah, yeah. That was probably the best movie of the thing of the festival. So for me, I guess my contribution is it's a horror movie, slow burn,
Hmm.
called February, and I loved it. It has a you either love it or hate it, and it has a new name now because February no one's gonna remember February as a title, but if you look under IMDb, it's really great. I don't think it's come out yet, but
Do you remember what the new name is?
no, I don't. I look this. We have this thing called the internet. I'll just look it up real fast.
Oh yeah,
I'll just kill a minute of
it's
my
a
time.
series of tubes. I heard.
Yeah, yeah,
Very useful.
yeah. But
One of the things I love about life with Ivy, my wife,
mhm.
is the fact that we refuse to be jaded.
Oh
So
yeah,
like every single day there'll be some little thing where we'll pull out our phone and we'll just go, "Isn't that great?" Like like using Shazam to pull a song out of the air. It's just like we refuse to get used to it.
yeah,
We are daily grateful
yeah,
for all the things that we tell our kids. We never tell our kids, "Oh, things were so much better in our days."
yeah.
We tell them that it just sucked. It was horrible. Everything was terrible. TV was terrible. Movies was terrible.
Oh
The
man.
phone system was terrible. Everything was terrible.
Oh man. Well, there's another movie I want to talk about that. I think that would be different. But The Black Coat's Daughter is what it's called now,
Ooh,
and I think it's a terrible title. I like February better.
that's a
But
strange name. Yeah.
yeah, it comes out July 15th, so it looks like so Black Coat's Daughter. But it's one where you have for me it was like you're trying to figure out what's going on, and
Uh huh.
then you have a theory, and then you test it with what you see for this movie, and it doesn't really prove your theory until like the very end for me. Like, and so you're like, so people like walked out just hating it because you actually had to like focus like it's a crossword puzzle trying to figure it out, and then I felt like great because it was just like yeah, it would not let me go. Like I had to go see what was happening
That sounds
next.
that sounds pretty good. I mentioned a movie a moment ago. One of our favorite movies, the two of us, my wife and I, is Drowning by Numbers,
Oh wow. Okay.
because it has that ridiculous formal constraint that the numbers 1 through 100 appear in order during the film, and you just have and you after a while you know what the story is, but you're not really paying much attention to the story. All you know is that 43 is coming up, and it might be a page number, or maybe it's going to be on the side of a house, or maybe it's going to be on a marathon runner running by, but 43 is coming, and that's all you can think about.
Right.
And I love that. That's so great.
Oh man. All right. I have to look that one up. Cool.
That's our favorite Greenaway.
Okay. Cool. And then what's the other movie I just saw? Oh, I want to talk about. I forgot. I forgot what the movie was. Dang it. Give me 1 minute. Oh yeah. So I talked about like 80s, 80s. Like so, it's like,
Yeah.
oh, that sucked back growing up. But have you seen the Raiders, the adaptation of Raiders of the
I
Lost
saw, you mean the Backyard Raiders, the
Yeah,
ones that
yeah,
the kids did?
yeah.
I actually saw at the Museum of Jurassic Technology in LA.
Okay.
I saw a presentation by the director and I think one of the actors,
Yeah.
and they showed the entire thing.
Right.
They showed the actual film, and a comic book artist, Dan Clowes, I think, was set at one point to write the screenplay of a movie they were going to make about the kids making the movie. Now, that's not what you're talking about, though. You're talking about the actual movie, right?
Yeah. So so the actual movie that the kids made. So
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
actually there's a documentary about the movie. The
Okay.
kids made,
Good. Good.
because like 30 years, 40 years later, and that they had a Kickstarter, a crowdsourcing, to finish the movie because of the stealth
Thought they
bomber
did.
Germany did, and so they
Oh,
had like
I thought they did finish it. What I saw was a finished
yeah
thing.
so they have a documentary about that includes all that stuff in it that's out now. It's coming out now, and then they have the finished product
Okay,
of
all right,
it.
hang on. All right, we're doing a disservice to your listeners because there's like half of the people listening to this have no idea what we're talking
Okay,
about.
right.
So just we'll just explain real quick
Okay.
that a bunch of kids
Hmm.
really loved Raiders of the Lost Ark way back. This was like 30 years ago
Right.
or something like that, and they decided to remake the entire movie shot for shot in
Right.
their backyard.
As
And
you do.
by the time they were done, they were like borrowing submarines, having actual car chases.
Right.
They went completely insane. They couldn't find a monkey, so they had their pet dog
Right.
on their shoulders, and yeah, and they did it. They actually made over the course of what was it, like 5 years?
Yeah. 5, 6 years. They actually burned down part of their parents' house.
It's like a kid-sized burden of dreams. You know,
Right.
it's just like it's like they dragged their ship over the mountain. I love that. That's
Yeah.
so fun. But I guess they wanted to do a movie like a recreation, like a movie about them making the movie.
Hmm.
But then there were rights issues because it is basically, like a reshoot of
Yeah.
Raiders.
Yeah. It is. Yeah. So, but it's so we just saw a double feature of the documentary,
Hmm.
and then we saw the finished product, like with the actual like, oh, the crowdsourced making of the film, and like so
Oh.
it was really surreal because you saw all these shots of the kids getting older and older, like the 80s hairdo gets
Yeah.
in there, right? And then all of a sudden, the shot when they get out of the pyramid, out of the tomb, and then they have to fight blow up the plane and everything like that. So everyone's like 30 years older in HD. And then there's some scenes that are stitched in there from the 80s as well. So like HD 80s, then
That's
HD,
fantastic.
and all of a sudden then you're back to 80s. And so, oh man, so I think
I,
some things are better in the 80s. I don't know. Like,
we live at a time though when this can exist.
yeah,
I think that just like something that is so in its own category that belongs to no class, no category whatsoever, that the joy of it is how long it takes to even explain what it is.
yeah,
That's just like everything just fit neatly in its category when I was growing up. And now there are things that are their own categorical anomalies.
yeah.
And there's something just so magnificent about that. Like, like trying to explain some memes, for example.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's like, yeah, like what is this? Like, yeah, definitely I agree with that. So, all right, so So if you have any more movie suggestions, let me know. We'll just bring
If
it.
they'll come up, I'm
They'll
sure.
go. Yeah. So what are you working on right now in terms of? Can you tell me what you're working on now? Or
Sure, yeah.
okay.
I'm working slowly on a book about visual communication across disciplines.
Oh wow.
So this is something where I'm seeing if I can distill common principles in all these different ways that we teach or learn through pictures. So everything from information graphics to data visualization to educational animation, educational comics, even facial expressions and body language, PowerPoint presentations, all these different ways. I want to see if I can figure out what are the underlying bedrock principles of sort of best practices for teaching and communicating through pictures. I'm calling it a elements of style for visual communication.
Oh wow. Okay.
So it's a big job in terms of research. I mean, I've been researching in so many, just zillions of different ways. But like I've been saying, it's sort of like I need to research a very big book so I can make a very small book. I want to be sure to distill it down to something essential.
Okay. And I hate to draw the comparison out, but in some ways I feel like I have to. Is like, so how would you compare it to understanding comics? Because you do talk about a lot of the same topics. It sounds like in
Hmm.
understanding comics to this idea of this concept.
Well, yes and no. I mean, the thing with understanding comics is I took the subject of comics and tried to illuminate a lot of the underlying principles, but they weren't prescriptive. That's one of the things that made understanding comics what it was, is that it was descriptive, not prescriptive.
Okay.
In the entire book, really, I almost never said, "And here's how to do it well."
Right.
Never came up. And in
Hmm.
fact, people were frustrated with me because they thought it was going to be a how-to, and
Right.
they got the book and they thought, "But Scott isn't instructing me on how to tell good comics from bad, or
Hmm.
how to draw better manga babes or whatever." It's like that wasn't what it was about. Well, this
Right.
time I actually I'm going to see, just I'm going to separate good from bad for the first time. I'm actually going to say, you know what, this fire safety diagram sucks,
Okay.
but it sucks in a really interesting way, and it helps illuminate a lot of principles. And in what ways is it violating fundamental principles of the way we process proximity or size relationships or forms of representation?
Yeah.
Why does this seem a little dissonant cognitively? Why do we have trouble resolving these shapes, whereas these shapes would have been more seamless? How do we communicate much more efficiently? And so it's a very different realm, because usually I try to stand back and say, well, you could do that, you could do this, you could do that. Maybe that'll happen. Maybe that'll happen. This time it's like, no, that was wrong.
Hmm.
That was wrong. This is why it's wrong.
Okay.
And let's make the world a better place
Okay.
for visual design.
So almost like better UI, better user experience.
Yeah, it's very much in the realm of UI.
Okay.
And I recently got to speak to Edward Tufte,
Nice.
who, even though obviously he's not, well, we don't classify what he does as UI, but of course we all know that that's, in many ways, he was a forerunner of some of those
Hmm.
aesthetic foundations that led into that sensibility.
Right.
Um, and and yeah, I mean, like that's sort of the. I guess I'm becoming more of sort of a cranky usability guy. I think that something happens as you get older.
Yeah.
Your love of good design is gradually, incrementally replaced by a hatred of bad design, which is slightly different.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
you're much more attuned to all that is wrong out there.
Hmm.
So yeah, in a sense, I guess you might say I'm looking for chart junk.
Hmm.
I should probably hunt up Jacob Nielsen at one point.
Okay.
But the thing is that um, I think it really goes. It's good to go back to first principles.
Hmm.
It's good to go back to the moment where things were at their simplest, where the world was first being created, to see maybe where we took a wrong turn.
Right.
I had the pleasure just a couple of weeks ago of speaking to Susan Kerr, who had drawn the original Mac interface.
Icon. Yeah.
She's
Hmm.
the one who drew the trash can and the document and all, and just sort of getting a sense of all these different eras that we've been through, and all these ways in which so much kludgy topsoil has been dumped on top of it. And one of the things that Tufte had said, which I thought was really interesting, is he's distrustful of the idea of compartmentalized functions and jobs. The idea that, oh, well, this person does this kind of visual communication, this person does this kind of visual communication. To his mind, there's the message and there's the user, the audience, and you choose whatever path will clearly illuminate the information. Now, in his case, he often defaults to paper, and that's what he's been focusing on. But I want to see if I can figure out why. What is it about paper? What are paper's advantages, and what design priorities that we've imported from a time of print are now floating into a different realm in which things like scarcity are no longer one of the dominant design mandates. Scarcity was a very big deal. When we speak of things like the data ink ratio, we're talking about like how much can you get out of every square inch of paper. Well, one of the reasons you're doing that, just one, there are several, but one reason is because you don't want to waste paper.
Right.
This is not the case with pixels, but we still have that sort of that underlying. Those are our marching orders, right? Which is why we try to cram so much on every PowerPoint slide. Yeah. We don't have to.
Well, I was going to ask you, like, I guess you're going to say bad design. You're just going to put PowerPoint. You're just going to slide it all PowerPoint underneath.
No. Well, of course, I actually present a lot, and I've come to really like presentation software.
Yeah.
From the beginning when I started using PowerPoint, I'm using Keynote now, but we all know it's the same thing.
Right.
From the beginning, I saw it as a tremendous opportunity. I was especially struck when my daughter started doing it when she was 13 years old. When we were on tour, she had a 7-minute presentation with 200 or 300 slides, and she just understood instinctively that she could use visuals and that the words were coming out of her mouth, and that the visuals were synchronized to those. And she had a completely different approach to PowerPoint that really neutralized a lot of the things that we think of as the worst in that particular medium. And I've been doing that myself for many years. I've been giving visual presentations that I can go for 400 slides and never have a single list of any sort, very little text, because I don't think it's necessary.
Yeah, I think as a conference organizer, I see all sorts of presentations, and so the one I don't see that much though. Like your presentation is definitely more visually. I guess the way you describe your presentation is very unique. I don't. But there's like Lawrence Lessig, I think his name is correct. But yeah, he'll just like rapid fire, like slides are just like water, just like, oh, whatever,
Exactly.
Right. And so there's that style delivery. There's people who, maybe two slides and they're done. That's all they need to get their point across. But yeah, and then some are like in our industry, like a lot of code examples, like that demo time and stuff like that too. So, but yeah, I could definitely see. But where I'm thinking about like bad PowerPoint is, I'm not sure this is your example or I saw it in your presentation or not, but like the NASA Challenger explosion, when they went to go back and they figured out like what went wrong, and Tufte, I think it's Tufte actually was on the team.
That is.
Yeah.
Tufte is did indeed critique those presentations, and he reserved special ire for the PowerPoint presentation, which obfuscated the information rather than illuminating it. Right. Now, he expanded that into a critique of PowerPoint generally, and I think some of his points regarding having one image after another are worth considering, even beyond the horrifically bad PowerPoint presentation that they put together. He has a much more generalized dislike for it, which was then countered by David Byrne, who did his I Love PowerPoint tour, and I'm somewhere in the middle. But a good example, if going back to that, is one way to explain my philosophy when I'm giving presentations is, if I don't need to think it, I don't need to see it. And if you apply just that simple rule to 99% of presentations out there, you realize that they're violating that almost continuously. And I think that's something where Lessig and I probably have that in common, is that we, if I'm talking about something, it's going to be there on the screen as soon as I'm done talking about it and I move on to the next topic. that image is going to be replaced by the next topic. Because otherwise, I think you have a sort of a cognitive dissonance that think of the typical bulleted list. Your eyes will drift inevitably to the next six things that you're going to be talking about while they're talking about number one. And you're always going to be drifting into the past and into the future because they're all sitting there. And it's very hard to stay focused on what's being discussed when there's all this other visual noise. We have this idea that when we begin a presentation, we believe that we have our words, we have the meaning of our words, we have our presentation skills, our facial expressions, our body language, all of the skills that we bring as a presenter, and we think now we can add pictures, right? But what we overlook is the fact that when you add pictures, you're starting at a deficit because you've just added a distraction. You've actually sapped some of your audience's ability to concentrate on you because now you have this other thing, like a dancing poodle over here, that's going to make it harder to concentrate on you. So you're starting below sea level. You've got to have genuine added value in each and every visual you put on that screen. Otherwise, you shouldn't have the screen at all.
Yeah. That's why I feel like bands now, they have to have a TV screen behind them. And I was like, well, is that more because of a statement about us, viewer watching it, and we have ADD, or the fact that they aren't that good, and we have to?
Well, it depends on the screen, right?
Yeah.
I think that I was at Moogfest. That's where I spoke to Susan Kerr in Durham, and some of the presentations, like Grimes was there, and I thought the screens they used them really well. And a lot of that comes back to synchronization. The idea that you're expressing the music visually can actually be really exciting.
Can you explain what Moogfest is and what
happens? Sorry, yeah. Moogfest is a music festival in Durham, North Carolina. In the wake of HB7, was it the bathroom bill that that prohibited transgender people from using the bathroom of their identified sexuality or their identified gender rather. They decided to stay, so they didn't protest. So they actually had the festival this time, but they were protesting in other ways. Interesting thing is it's named for Robert Moog, who developed the Moog synthesizer, which in the early days was most closely associated with Wendy Carlos, formerly Walter Carlos, a real transgender icon at a time when that was extremely rare in the United States. So it had an interesting... Sorry, none of that has to do with your question, but
no,
it's a music festival, and they had Reggie Watts was there, Laurie Anderson was there, as I mentioned, Grimes, Gary Newman.
Oh wow!
It's a lot of fun people.
Nice.
But I really like the shows in which the visuals were carefully synchronized to the music, where they were attempting to express the music beat for beat. I think that's enormously important. I don't think that these things should just be set parallel. And you see that a lot. I love music videos too. My favorite music videos from back when they actually made music videos were always cut to the beat exactly, rather than just having some drama going on while the music is playing in the background.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I had another friend at Moogfest, and I was just like, wow, that's awesome. You guys should meet up and talk to each other. But yeah, so Moogfest sounds awesome. So yeah, but in terms of using, we're talking about using visuals as a means of performance and enhancing, and so so when I usually speak, I usually find out that when I go through the run through, it's like, oh, there's something I'm talking about as here's a slide, this is what we're talking about, and then I mentioned something else as an extra. I was like, oh wait, I need to add that slide to the visual because people are going to they're not going to be listening to me. They're going to be actually seeing what's on the screen, so I have to go back and add that slide because otherwise they don't know what the heck I'm talking about. So,
well, what you're talking about is what I think of as the dividing line between two different presentational styles, right? One of them I call monkey bars, and the other one I call magic carpet.
Okay.
And monkey bars is where what you want to talk about, and you cook up some slides that represent different topics. You throw those slides on the screen, and then as each slide comes up, it's like an outline. It's like you see that slide, and you're like, right, I remember I want to talk about this. Right. When you're done talking about that, you throw the next slide up, and that reminds you of the next thing you wanted to talk about. And that way you can improvise, but it has some structure built in,
Right.
right?
Hmm.
But so maybe it's a little inefficient. Maybe you go on at the mouth about this thing that you didn't need to talk quite so long about. But it's all right. It's spontaneous. It's fun. But if once you've done that a few times, gradually you find more efficient ways to say it. Gradually, as you're talking about this slide, you already kind of know about when the next slide's going to come up, and you know what you're going to say with the next slide. That becomes a kind of script. You don't have to write it down. You know after you've given it a few times,
Right.
and that's magic carpet. The difference is monkey bars is like up comes the slide and you're grabbing on like monkey bars, right?
Right.
You're hanging from your slides, right? Each new slide you hang from your slides. Magic carpet is where you're just talking, you're walking through air with your words, and as you reach each new topic, the picture just slides up underneath your feet and just replaces the last image
Yeah.
as you go, and so it feels more seamless. And they're both valid ways to present, but the one kind of leads to the other, I think.
Right. I think so. Yeah, I think. Yeah, if you have the same presentation, I think in our industry, if you go around speaking about it, like the more you practice it, and you get more of that magic carpet feel to it. So,
Yeah, and then it evolves over time too.
Right.
You add, you take things away,
Mm.
but it just sort of changes slowly.
Right. Yeah, the most amazing one, I think it was a viral video for a while, or whatever. But I saw it was a 7 minute presentation, but the guy, it was like sort of like a quasi keynote in France or something like that, and I didn't understand what he was saying, but he timed it to a movie. He actually made a movie, and so he had this amazing visuals. So they weren't just like static slides, or they weren't like videos on slides or gifs, memes on slides, but it was actually like this like trailer of something, and he was just. I was just like, that's a lot of effort to make that work. But
It is. That takes a lot of rehearsal, and of course, something goes wrong, and it's like, okay, you're in trouble now.
Right. Right. So I want to get back to the new book you're talking about. Is it also sort of like design 101 type of things? Like we're talking about design principles, so scarcity and color schemes and color theory a little bit too. Is that also going to be in that book?
Yeah, there's some 101 in there, and
Okay.
I'll be going back and kind of revisiting some of those earliest design principles that come out of things like the Berlin School, or Arnheim,
Okay.
or like mentioning stuff like pre-attentive processing, the pop-out effect, that sort of thing, but always with a very practical eye. Not in terms of trying to create some kind of comprehensive picture of visual cognition, because that's changing very fast. Every year we understand that better, and every year we throw out the last theory about how it all works. So I'm not really interested in taking apart the mind, the visual cortex, but I am interested in just saying, like a carpenter might, just saying, what, if you put the nail in like this, it's going to go in that wood more securely. This is I always like to put a level on this before we attach the parts, that kind of thing, because as somebody who works with pictures all day long, I have a pretty good instinct for that. So if it works, it works. And even if the explanation changes from generation to generation as to why it works,
Right.
how we construct that meaning mentally, I'm not going to get too caught up in that individual moment of a research into cognition, because that's a fast moving target.
Yeah.
I mean, we're learning so much so fast about how the mind processes images, and a lot of our assumptions are changing pretty continuously.
Okay. Cool. Is there anything else you want to? Can you mention right now about your new book? Because I'm already excited for it. So
Cool. Well, it will be comics. It'll be in comics form, and
wow.
I will be walking around pointing at things.
Oh, thank you.
But yeah, the way I do.
Yeah.
But I think that probably it'll be different in a couple of key respects. So I'm not quite sure yet. Visually, it'll probably look somewhat different from the books like Understanding Comics.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Yeah. Well, I don't want to harp too much on the Understand Comics so much, but I know, but cool. But which is a great book. But because I feel like as an old guy, I just said I wouldn't harp on it, but I just want to say it. Just like as an old web nerd, as it was, it just Understanding Comics is a touchstone in terms of our industry, and also you mentioned in the presentation you gave at Control conferences that it also other industries as well It felt like,
Yeah.
it felt like it. I understand
Well,
your point. It just
yeah, I
reached
think
out.
it's a little like what happened to Donald Norman and Edward Tufte. Is that what I found was if you take any topic, no matter what it is, and you dig in deeply enough, if you drill down far enough into your own little tiny area of expertise, what happens is you get closer and closer to the core of things. And the more obsessively you learn about any one topic, the more you find yourself uncovering fundamental topics that underlie many different disciplines. And that's I think that's what Tufte discovered. That's what Donald Norman discovered. That's what a lot of people discovered. Is just that passion for the specific leads you to the general. And I think that's just one of those things that comes up again and again. Um, and so, at a time, when the web was new, which wasn't that long ago, let's face it,
Yeah.
there weren't a lot of texts. People had to reach outside of their disciplines because, web design in 1994
Hmm.
didn't have a very thick library.
Right. Which is like one of the lessons I learned from their book was like new mediums are always judged by the old, and that's kind of funny how like we needed old mediums to tell us what to do with the web, and or it's like
Yeah.
because we were web designers, we weren't really print designers for the most part, but a lot of print came in and helped us establish what we can do now, and so
Well, in one respect, that was an old classic design mistake, but in another respect, I benefited from it. You know, because otherwise they never would have picked my book off the shelf. So
oh, okay.
I can only criticize it so far that they reached into other media.
Yeah. And also like, yeah, exactly. Because like it was your book, and then David Siegel, Crane Killer websites, and then Linda
Yep.
Weinman's book. Yeah, it was just like,
Yeah.
and I felt like I wrote web design books myself because I felt like, well, that's how you learn is like buy books on
Sure. Yeah.
on how to like design for the web, which is like kind of crazy these days. But because now it's all blogs, all this stuff. Too.
Yeah. But
But
one thing, Christopher, about that idea of our basing our understanding of each successive generation of media or technologies based on the previous technology.
mhm,
One thing is that that's a very long arc, and this is something that people like Paul Sappho talked about, which is that we're not talking about 3 or 4 years. It can be 20 years
mhm,
of approaching a new art form using certain fundamental assumptions about the old ones. It wasn't that quickly that we shook off the theatrical artifacts that early movies had, or got rid of what our sort of radio based sensibility as we moved into television. It can take a very long time
yeah.
to overcome those things. Sometimes as many as 20 years or so.
Yeah, I mean, we saw soap operas that survive, like that.
Yeah.
They're surviving because I thought it was incredibly awesome that soap operas, radio, survived TV, could not survive the lack of viewership, and now they're on Hulu, right? Which is just like it blows my mind that they're on Hulu,
Yeah.
right? It just
Yeah.
like they're on a digital platform now. They're just this concept is surviving. And I'm just like whoever came with this idea is immortal in some ways. Like just talk about sculptor that concept of that. But I felt like, oh wow, that's amazing that they're just finding new ways to keep this show going. And some suburbs didn't make the cut, but yeah,
Well,
but
that's the old shell and the yolk and the white of the egg. Like that's just that we took it all as one entity, and then suddenly it's mixing in the pan, and you realize no, it was always about the stuff inside. It wasn't about the shell. And that's the thing why when we were all talking about convergence in the 90s, I saw it as a cross current.
mm,
That you would see convergence of distribution, but you'd also see some things that were aesthetically bonded were actually going to diverge into different things. Once they were released from their original containers, you would find one aspect of a medium would be landing in one corner, and another aspect of a medium would be landing in another corner. And you certainly see that with the moving image. Where the distinction between TV and movie was. It was a technological distinction and it was a market distinction, but they were both aspects of the art of the moving image.
right,
And now what you see is as that's uncoupled from the device,
yeah,
now you realize what were the fundamental ideas. Well, there's the short stuff and the long stuff. There's
Right.
the continuing stuff and the one-off stuff.
Right.
Those were the differences. Those were the meaningful differences.
Right. It's just like what is going to a movie theater these days? Like, is
Mhm.
it is it going to see two episodes of a TV show, or is it just one long movie, or like whatever?
Yeah,
Because like even like when Netflix releases a show, it is like one long movie, right? It's not just
yeah.
it's not a TV show anymore to me. It's just like I have 13 chapters of this Daredevil's life I have to go see.
Yeah.
You know,
Or if you go with the British and the Canadian model, you might have 3 episode seasons. Like,
right? Yeah.
one of our favorite series was Slings and Arrows, which was either 3 or 6 per season. I can't remember. Or I think of The Singing Detective, going back, Dennis Potter's great BBC series. That was more in that realm. And it really was like a movie event. Ivy and I went to see that sort of period recasting of the modern Sherlock series, with Benedict Cumberbatch
Yeah.
in the movie theater. We went to the movie theater to see an episode
Right.
of a TV show.
Oh, right. Yeah, because BBC did that for the Christmas episode, right?
Oh no, it was for when they were back in the time of Sherlock
Oh,
Holmes,
yeah,
back
yeah,
in Arthur Conan Doyle era.
yeah,
And what's that Christmas? I don't think it was Christmas. Was it Christmas themed?
yeah.
No,
No, it was during Christmas time. I think they
it was
released.
during Christmas time. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
but I mean, but oh God, I mean, talk about fudging the boundaries.
yeah, yeah. And I was sick, and I had a fever dream, and I watched it, and that messed me up totally. I was just like, oh my gosh. So it's not my favorite episode because of that. Not because of the episode was bad, but I was just like, I
Had some
just
interesting moments.
yeah. But yeah, and also Doctor Who. I'm a big Doctor Who fan, and so BBC's been playing with like the 50th anniversary was in you could watch it in the movie theater and
Yeah,
stateside.
yeah.
So and that was when I was like, "Oh, that's fine with me. Okay, I'll watch it 3D in a movie theater. Why not? So, but yeah, so it definitely I definitely see that. So, but like I'm not sure. Well, I want to circle back to comics in terms of the limitation though is therefore we have digital comics which we don't have to worry about page count
Hmm.
terribly, except how much pay
Except they
artists.
often do. They do still break them into pages frequently.
Right.
My
But
heart breaks a little every
well,
time because when it too much reproduces the structure of a technology that it's no longer coupled to, that always makes me a little sad.
yeah, because I do want to talk about like because DC went to like 22 pages
Hmm.
not too long ago. I'm not sure they're still at 22 pages or not. And this is from a guy who used to be a DC Comics fan, so like I just stopped. So I was like, okay. But it was amazing how much like the 2 pages they dropped
Hmm.
affected the storytelling
Yeah.
because it's like you lost a whole beat, of a subplot. You can't have a subplot anymore. It felt like the comics I was reading, it was like, where's the subplot? Like, there's no. We
Yeah,
really have,
22 is awfully short.
yeah, and
You
then
have to really cram things in.
right. And I was reading a review of to prepare for talking to you today. It was like the review of Sculptor, and you said you had 3 pages of 2 people eating dinner, and that's like 30 pages. That's
It is literally 30 pages.
yeah.
Actually.
And so that's like 2 Marvel comics right there. It's like I don't know.
Yeah.
So, but yeah. So, yeah. So the limitations of the medium, like there's print and then there's digital. Digital, as you say, like and also I think if I understand this discussion, the argument, right, is that because it's digital, we don't have to be tied to the print layout anymore. We can just
No.
we just do boxes and stuff, and then the guided view of like comicsology. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So how is that? Does that fix the problem? I'm using air quotes.
No. The problems are still there.
Okay.
No, I think in terms of the cranky old man usability argument for me
Yeah.
is that if I'm thinking about the mode of navigation while I'm navigating, something's very, very wrong. By the time I've made it to panel 3 on page 1, I should no longer be thinking about how I get from place to place.
Yeah.
And so when you have an ever-changing mode of navigation, when you have some sort of guided view that gets you from panel to panel, but then in some way you are aware that now you're moving on to the next page and now you're changing mode of navigation again, that's no good. You shouldn't have to look. You shouldn't have to think.
Right.
Navigating on an iPad should be your thumb going like that. This should be never any more than that.
Right.
Never any more. I did a lot of comics in the early days, like 96, 97, where I would have like hundreds of panels just in a single scroll. So I thought, why bother having pages at all, why not just make the screen a window and just navigate through it? So I thought, okay, vertical, horizontal, staircase, whatever. But there, it was a single mode navigation because I was scrolling, right? So it's the same basic idea, even though they're radically different. The idea is, however you got from 1 to 2 and 2 to 3, that's how you get from 3 to 4 and 4 to 5. And that should be that way through the whole time. And that's how it becomes invisible, because in a storytelling medium,
Mm-hmm.
in which you hope that people are going to be losing themselves in the world of the story, the characters, the plot, the environment, the last thing you need is to be constantly yanked back to the glowing screen and your fingers on a keyboard. That just sucks.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of the solutions we've come up with are kludgy. And one of the things that just drives me nuts is that I really thought by the turn of the century we would have ditched the idea of keeping a vertical page
Yeah.
on a horizontal screen.
Mm-hmm.
talk about Talk about appropriating the shape of the previous technology and trying to shoehorn it into the new one.
All right.
That's criminal. That is so wrong.
Well, DC Comics had digital only comics, right? Where they just it was horizontal,
Yeah,
and
you're
so
seeing some landscape
yeah,
pages.
yeah.
Yeah, they're
It's
beginning to do it.
and actually one of my favorite comics of recent is actually Stars Digital. It was a Superman Adventures digital only comic, and it was I think it was illustrated by Jock. I'm not sure that's his name, like Jock. That's his only name, but it's like Cher, I guess. But and but the digital comics were like just horizontal, but they went to go publish them for print as you do because there were I don't know what 12 pages each on digital, and they one issue would be 2 issues, and so they would actually stack the
Yeah,
blocks to make one big
you
issue.
can't. You really can't have it both ways. I
Yeah.
really, we took a bad turn
Hmm.
when comics companies decided that they needed some kind of push button solution that would allow them to create for one technology, for one format, and have it magically transformed to the other. You need to design for the device.
Right.
I believe in designing for the device. Responsive design is all well and good
Hmm.
for many types of media,
Okay.
but in comics, the shape of the presentation is essential to the presentation. It's part of the soul of what this medium is what shape it takes. It matters with comics, and so I think it does violence to the work itself to think that you can just throw it into the meat grinder and have it created for one form factor, one aspect ratio in print, and have it just automatically sent to, like, let's say, landscape format on an iPhone. Now, you can, if you choose, you can just have every single panel be a square, have it relatively low res, or in other words, total res in terms of like how much detail you actually put into the panel, lettering large enough, that sort of thing. And then, yeah, you could have two across if you're reading it on the bus, or maybe four, 2 by 2 or 2 by 3 on your pad, and maybe many more panels on the screen. And that's a design decision that it's not entirely illegitimate. You could do interesting things with that if you just make sure that the integrity of each and every box is good. But it does overlook what I think is one of the most unique things about comics, which is the temporal map, and creating something in which you're seeing a map of time, where past, present, and future is all around you. This is one of the only media we have in which we're rising above that temporal landscape. All other art forms, it's always now. And whether you're looking at a play or reading a book or watching a movie, there's just that sense of being on the now treadmill, right? So to me, the survival of comics is linked to its unique properties. Otherwise, well, you might as well watch a movie if it's just trying to be a poor man's movie. You might as well watch the real thing.
Yeah.
So that aspect of it, I think, we're overlooking that if we slice and dice it to the point where all we really care about is being able to shoehorn it
Hmm.
into a variety of formats. I think that's a mistake.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Cool.
But you see, that's the cranky old man in me.
Well, like, well, you've offered Crank Old Man. I'll offer my Crank Old Man. Is that I have I'm not a big fan of modern comics. I feel like it's everything is I've come to realize that it's me because they keep on making comics without my like permission. But is that I love you talk about how you we talked about this before. You talked about this in interviews. Is that the tools and technology that you have to make comics now
Hmm.
are amazing because you just draw something, fix it. Right. And as a
Yeah.
writer, I feel like revising is awesome because I don't feel like I'm a writer. I'm an editor. But in that, but what I love is the original comic art, where you have the artist, you have the inker, you have the
Yeah.
word balloonist, and it's all in this page, this original comic book page,
Mhm.
and there is this artifact that to get 24 pages in the old school 80s and whatever what have you is that once the artist is done, once it's inked, we're like we're in there. We're like
Yeah.
this is what that has to work, and so that means like editing, fixing things, white out, to
Hmm.
bring it out there. Just like every trick in the book to get this to work right. And I felt like wow, there's so much manpower. Maybe creativity went into it, but creativity
No,
went into it.
quite
Yeah,
a lot. But
yeah,
yeah, but
yeah.
it was all corralled onto that one
Right.
rectangular piece of Bristol board. Yeah,
Right,
absolutely.
and I love that because I feel like we're all in this is what we're building, and then you take photos. I don't know. I could guess how comics can after that photos and made into a book or whatever what have you. But yeah, I love that, and then I see modern comics, which I feel like they're just exercises in exercising. I guess I don't know. I just feel like we'll just draw some stuff here. We have enough room for all the text, so we'll just have this gigantic word balloon here, and we can't. I'll just have one big giant word balloon. We'll have several word balloons take up a page. Who needs editing? Whatever. So it's just like just because we can fit it in, all editing. This I feel like there's no thing of like, hey, this artist came in, drew this elegant looking page.
Hmm.
We can't overload it with words. We have to edit down the words to fit the beats. The editor comes in and says this doesn't fit the tone, whatever, like what have you, whatever editors do, whatever. But for comics, and so that's my cranky old man. And then
Okay, well,
you,
fortunately now, thank you,
yeah,
Christopher, because now you've given me the opportunity to draw back the curtains and bring some sunlight into the room because
oh,
I have good news for you.
okay, good,
There's comics has not just gone in that direction, fortunately. Now, what you're describing probably
hmm
has a lot to do with the comics we remember from when we were younger,
right,
and like kind of the mainstream, the superhero stuff, where you had a team, you had the writer and the artist, and the inker. These were all different people, the letterer and all.
right,
But increasingly, a much bigger part of the comics world is being done by people who are very sensitive to the problems you're talking about, and it's often one person.
hmm
And these are, a lot of comics for kids, or a lot of parts of the graphic novels movement, or the web comics movement now has moved pretty far away from that stuff. Now, if you want to pick up the latest issue of Wolverine or Iron Man with the 22 pages, you're definitely going to be running into a lot of the problems that you ran into.
right,
But I'm seeing there's been a really strong movement away from that kind of storytelling, and it's often just one cartoonist doing the whole job, writing and drawing, and they've got more room. First of all, they'll often be working like 300 or 400 pages, like I did on this latest one, and they'll take the time, and they don't overload it with giant word balloons filled with lots of words.
right,
You may turn those pages faster.
right,
You may be annoyed that you paid all that money for that book and you just read the whole thing in 2 hours on the bus, but um, but the pace is much more naturalistic,
mm,
and the integration of words and pictures is much more mature too. And I got to see in real time that thing about like as new technologies come along, you start by adapting the ways of the old. I saw that in real time because when we started getting those 200 and 300 page formats, what do? Well, we thought, oh, now I can cram in even more rushed, crowded storytelling and get more storytelling done. And it actually took a while. It took people like Craig Thompson to come along and say, you know what? I just realized I have all these pages. If I want to have 20 pages of snow melting, I can do that.
yeah,
And there are times when the story really needs 20 pages of snow melting, where that is exactly the right decision as a storyteller. That's happening. That's happening a lot more. Much more harmonious word picture combinations,
mm,
more naturalistic storytelling, and moving away from the kind of the weird artifice that comes from trying to justify the fact that you just paid $4 for 22 pages,
Right.
which is not a good. Our price per minute has not been good in the superhero realm
Right.
in recent years. But no, there's a lot of good news. I promise you. Like
Yeah.
when we're done, I'll send you a list of great graphic novels to
Okay.
check out.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. Like, just like if it's more of an independent movement.
Hmm.
It's like, so yeah, I totally agree, because that's why, people who can rise up and have that skill sets can make great comics that way.
Yeah.
And the tools are liberating in that way.
And
Whereas,
also the independents are no longer the independents in a lot of ways.
mm,
What we thought of when we were young and reading superhero comics, we thought of the mainstream as being Marvel and DC, maybe Dark Horse or something, and then the alternative or the independent stuff, that was everything else, right?
yeah,
Well, now the real mainstream are things like Persepolis, the graphic novel about growing up in Iran by Marjan Satrapi,
mm,
and that's in probably 30 languages by now, and it's assigned in classrooms all over the country. Or Raina Telgemeier's graphic novels like Smile and Drama for middle school age readers, and those things have I mean, she sold in the millions.
mm,
Now those are the true mainstream, and they eclipse, like the latest issue of Iron Man, which is, I
yeah,
don't know what it's selling, but it's not in those numbers.
yeah, exactly, yeah. All right, cool. Yeah, well, that gives me hope. So,
There's good news.
yeah,
I promise you, comics are in good shape.
cool, awesome. Well, I think it's a good stopping point for the episode. How can people find you on the internet?
I am at the intuitively named scottmccloud.com.
Okay, all right, cool. And thank you so much for being on the show, and I really appreciate your time.
My pleasure, Christopher.
Cool.